I have been covering what I believe are some of the best ETFs for maximizing dividend income and minimizing downside risk. Now, JP Morgan has just released a brand new ETF, and I genuinely think it has the potential to replace some of the most popular high income ETFs on the market right now. And the reason I say this is because it looks like JP Morgan has finally caught on to the tax efficiency trend that has been reshaping this entire space. If you are building a portfolio centered around income generation, stick around because this one is worth your full attention. Over the last few years, high income ETFs have completely taken over the market. We are seeing funds released with yields of 10, 15, 20, and even up to 30%. But I have always said that a higher yield does not automatically mean a better fund. In fact, the higher the yield, the higher the risk of NAV erosion. And on a side note, I will be putting out a separate video covering the top high income ETFs with zero NAV erosion. So stay tuned, make sure you guys subscribe and hit the little notification bell button. Now, the veteran in this space is JP Morgan. They came out with two of the most popular high income ETFs to this day, and that is JEPI and JEPQ. They were established long before any of the newer high income funds like the NEOS ETFs or Goldman Sachs offerings. But the biggest issue with JEPI and JEPQ, and really the reason more attention has shifted towards alternative high income products, comes down to one thing: tax efficiency. Here's the thing: high income sounds great on the surface, but when a fund's total return, meaning both the price appreciation and the dividend distributions, is made up largely of dividend income, a significant chunk of that return gets taken away in taxes. And the problem with most option-generated income is that it gets treated as non-qualified dividends, which are taxed at your regular income tax rates. Depending on your personal income tax rate, the taxes on those dividends could range anywhere from 20 to 30% for most people, which is a significant chunk taken out of your earnings. To give you an example, consider JEPQ, which has returned 77% over the last 3 years. Of that, 48% was distributed as dividends. With a $100,000 initial investment, and assuming you're in the 30% income tax bracket, you would owe a total of $14,400 on those dividends, bringing your total return down from 77% to 62.6%. That is nearly 15% wiped off your total returns, which is pretty substantial. Now, modern high-income ETFs have found a way around this through something called return of capital, or ROC. And what that means is that when a fund distributes its dividends, it is actually returning a portion of your invested capital back to you rather than paying out income. And because it is not classified as income, it is not immediately taxed. It is tax deferred. And all that means is that instead of paying taxes on that distribution today, you pay long-term capital gains on it when you eventually sell or when your adjusted cost basis reaches zero. Let's say you invest $100,000 into a fund with a 10% dividend yield that pays 100% ROC distributions. In year one, your $10,000 distribution gets deducted from your adjusted cost basis, bringing it from $100,000 down to $90,000. In year two, the same thing happens. Another 10% distributions brings your ACB from $90,000 down to $81,000. And this continues until your ACB hits zero, and at that point, you begin paying long-term capital gains on any remaining distributions. Being able to defer those taxes is a massive advantage for investors who want to use that income now. So bringing this back to JP Morgan, the core issue with JEPI and JEPQ has always been that they are not using regular index options like NEOS, which is what allows those funds to be more tax efficient. Instead, JP Morgan has been using equity-linked notes, or ELNs. And I'm not going to go deep into how ELNs work because it gets complicated fast. But the short version is that they are simply not tax efficient. Now, JP Morgan has released two new funds, and that could officially replace one of the most popular high-income ETFs on the market. And that fund is ROCQ, the JP Morgan Nasdaq Equity Premium Income ETF. Now, they plan to make this as tax efficient as competing ETFs, but there are two critical differences that give ROCQ a real edge over something like QQQI and JEPQ. And this is where you need to pay close attention because it all comes down to strategy, active management, and fees. Building a resilient portfolio isn't just about owning different stocks. It is about true asset class diversification. While ETFs are great for equities, sometimes investors want more direct exposure to assets like commodities, energy, or treasury yields. That's where plus 500 futures can fit into a modern strategy. The platform provides access to futures on crude oil, gold, silver, and even Bitcoin. They also offer micro contracts, which allow you to take smaller position sizes with lower capital requirements, with commissions as low as 49 cents per micro contract. This can help investors fine-tune exposure without committing large amounts of capital. And Plus 500 operates in a CFTC-regulated environment with no inactivity fees. If you use my link to open and fund an account with at least $300, you can receive a $60 welcome credit. Terms and conditions apply, and you can find the link below in the description or comment section. Futures trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Leverage can work against you as well as for you. And of course, big thanks to Plus 500 for sponsoring today's segment. ROCQ was launched less than a month ago, and it already pulled in over $100 million in assets under management. Given JP Morgan's size, they can accumulate assets at a much faster pace than smaller fund managers, but the key number here is the expense ratio, just 0.35%. And for context, QQQI's expense ratio is nearly double that. Honestly, JP Morgan's ability to charge lower fees is somewhat of an unfair advantage. Smaller fund managers from companies like Amplify or Neos have to charge higher fees to stay viable. But what it means for the investor is a better deal, and that matters way more than you think over the long term. Let's say you invest $100,000 into each fund and both deliver an identical 8% annual return before fees. In the fund charging 0.68%, your ending balance after 40 years comes out to roughly $1,880,000. In the fund charging 0.35%, that same $100,000 grows to approximately $2,210,000. That is a difference of around $330,000 from nothing other than the fee you are paying. And keep in mind, we are not even factoring in any additional contributions over that period. The more you invest, the more that gap widens. Now, ROCQ is only a few weeks old, so there's no official yield yet. But given it's built on the same strategy as JEPQ, I'm expecting something similar in the 10 to 12% range. Now, beyond fees, there's another significant difference in how this fund is structured. When you look at ROCQ's holdings, the top 10 look fairly similar to QQQI and GPIQ. You have Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Google, Meta, Walmart, Broadcom, and you can see some clear differences in their percentage allocation. But once you scroll down further, the differences start to show even more. For example, compared to QQQI, ROCQ holds significantly less AMD, Palantir, and Cisco systems relative to its other positions. This is the active management element of the fund at work, and it is actually very similar to what JEPQ already does. Well, why is this important? Because JEPQ has outperformed many of its high-income peers over the last 6 months by around 3 to 4%. And a big reason for that is that the fund managers actively manage certain holdings rather than just replicating the QQQ index exactly. In a choppy or sideways market, that flexibility tends to give JEPQ an edge over something like QQQI or GPIQ. And now with ROCQ in the mix, we may have a fund that can replicate that kind of outperformance, but in a tax-efficient wrapper. And that is a genuine game changer. We already have a long track record with JEPQ to draw from. Even during the bear market of 2022, when most of these ETFs did not even exist yet, JEPQ demonstrated its ability to cushion volatility, dropping only around 12% compared to the Nasdaq 100's roughly 20% decline. And that kind of downside protection is meaningful. But here's where ROCQ really separates itself. As I mentioned before, JEPQ uses ELNs, and the biggest downside to those contracts, apart from their tax drag, is their rigidity. Once they are in place, they are extremely difficult to adjust. Unlike a regular call option where a manager can close or modify a position as market conditions change, ELNs lock you in. And we actually saw this play out during the recovery of 2025, where JEPQ lagged its peers by roughly 5%. Likely because the ELN contracts had expired and they were unable to reposition in time, causing them to miss a significant portion of the rally. ROCQ doesn't have that problem. It uses regular call options and call spreads, which gives the managers full flexibility to adjust positioning as needed. And for those unfamiliar, a call spread involves buying and selling call options simultaneously with the goal of capturing more upside, where the purchase call appreciates alongside the broader market. So you get the tax efficiency, the flexibility of standard options, and the potential performance advantage of active management all in one fund. And if you look at ROCQ's prospectus, it specifically states that the fund employs a proprietary data-driven equity allocation process designed to maximize risk-adjusted returns. Now, JP Morgan also released a second fund alongside ROCQ, and that is ROCY, which uses the same strategy but with more exposure to the S&P 500. Think of ROCY as the more risk-averse version of ROCQ, similar to how SPYI compares to QQQI. Now, before anyone runs out and starts buying ROCQ, there are two very important things to keep in mind. The first is liquidity. With $100 million in assets, the bid-to-ask spread is likely wider than what you're used to with JEPQ or QQQI, meaning that you could be paying a hidden cost through slippage on every transaction. I will personally wait until assets grow before jumping in. The second thing is that ROCQ is still heavily concentrated in large cap tech. The covered call strategy provides some cushion, but it doesn't eliminate the underlying exposure. And in today's environment, that is something to be mindful of before sizing into this position. So the overall picture here is that JP Morgan has officially entered the tax-efficient high income space with a strategy that combines active management, standard options flexibility, and ROC distributions. And in my opinion, this fund has a real shot at outpacing QQQI, GPIQ, and even JEPQ over time. And that is all for this one. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye! This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial, investment, tax, or legal advice. Discussions of ETFs, investing strategies, market updates, or specific funds are general, not tailored to your financial situation, and should not be relied upon for decision making. Investing involves significant risks, including total loss of principal, and past performance does not guarantee future results. I am not a registered financial advisor. My content reflects personal research and publicly available information. I may earn affiliate commissions from mentioned products or links disclosed per FTC guidelines, but these do not influence my opinions. Always consult a licensed financial professional and verify information independently. By watching this, you agree I am not liable for any losses or consequences from your actions. International viewers should consult local regulations.